This week, we'll talk about FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Changes have been made at the national and local levels. So what are those changes and what does it mean for students? That's next on WNIN Newsmakers. Welcome to WNIN Newsmakers. I'm April Nading. Today we'll learn more about FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. The federal government did a major overhaul of the form and that has created some delays. At the same time, all Indiana seniors have been asked to fill out the form. Joining us to figure out what all this means is Joanna Riney, Director of Student Financial Services at USI. Thank you for joining us today. So woo-wee, that sounds like a lot.
It is a lot, actually.
Can you explain, first of all, what FAFSA is?
FAFSA is the application for all federal student aid, but it's also used by the state government and by institutions and community foundations to determine a student's eligibility for grants, scholarships, loans, work study.
So for any institution?
Right.
There's really, okay, so what are the different kinds of aid that FAFSA does allow students to be eligible for?
FAFSA will allow students to be eligible for grant assistance, like the federal Pell Grant, the Indiana Frank O'Bannon Awards, the 21st Century Award in Indiana, also the Direct Loan Program. It's a federal loan program with a subsidized loan, which is interest-free to the students while they're in school if they qualify. Also is a low-interest, unsubsidized loan as well. Both of those loans don't have to be paid back until after they graduate, as long as they stay in school at least half time. For parents can apply for a Parent Plus loan. Some institutions do require a FAFSA for institutional aids like scholarships, any need-based grants potentially that an institution may have, or community foundations. Sometimes community offers scholarships and they will require the FAFSA as well.
So what about if there's a family who says, oh, we're not going to apply, we're not going to qualify, we don't need to fill that out? What would you say to them?
We always encourage students and parents to fill out the FAFSA because you never know, especially this year. With the major overhaul, the change in the application itself, the change in the calculation of eligibility, you never know. I mean, there's some students that might think, or parents might think, oh, we're not going to qualify for anything.
Right.
But, you may be surprised. Also, if your situation changes throughout the year, then there's some, like a special circumstance form that the colleges will be able to go in and look at your current eligibility, because the FAFSA looks at your income levels from 2 years ago. So if you've had a change in income level, or there's been a divorce, after you filled out the FAFSA, something like that, then the schools can go in and potentially make some adjustments to make it look at the most current information versus what it was 2 years ago.
So what you referred to it as a big overhaul, or maybe, why did they do that in the first place?
Trying to simplify it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Trying to simplify it. Students and parents used to spend, maybe an hour or more filling out the FAFSA.
I used to be one of those people when my kids were in school.
And it was just, it was kind of a pain. And but now there's been students and parents that I've talked to that are finished in less than 20 minutes,
Really?
15 or 20 minutes, yes. So it actually takes, there's a direct data exchange with the IRS now. So once a parent gives consent to allow the Department of Education to pull that data in, essentially, then the student and parent, if they filed taxes, that information just pulls right into the FAFSA without any intervention really at all.
So is that what the biggest change is on the federal level, at making them talk to each other, I guess, or communicate?
That's one of the big changes.
Okay.
Another big change is the calculation of eligibility. They changed the formula on what they look at and how the eligibility is calculated.
And does that make it more accessible for people, or what? How did that change?
The idea is to make students more eligible for the Pell Grant, for instance.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's supposed to be a benefit.
It should be. Okay.
should
Well,
be,
you know,
yes.
a lot of times you hear change
Right.
and upgrades, and it usually means.
Exactly.
So what kind of assistance is there for students and parents who maybe need help filling it out or filing?
Really, they can contact the Department of Education. They do have a helpline, and they've got a chat feature as well. Any of the colleges or universities that the student plans on sending their information to can help. We have some limited, as schools, we have limited ability to help the students and parents. The first step is to create what they call as a Federal Student Aid ID, or FSA ID. It's essentially an account eligible, or user account for the Department of Education.
Okay.
So with that account, they use that as their consent, as their signature that gives permission. So that is like the first big step that they need to do if they haven't done it already. That usually takes about 3 days for all of the matches and everything with the Social Security Administration to make sure that they're U.S. citizens and all of that. So that usually, you want to do that at least 3 days ahead of time so that it is ready to go when you go to fill out the FAFSA.
So I know you said if they haven't filled it out already, but one of the changes was, according to what I have, originally it was available on October 1st, but now it wasn't available until January, right? And a lot of the forms that were submitted haven't been processed yet. So is that something? Is that how it's always going to be? Was that just because of the change? I mean, what?
That was because of the change. Several years ago, they made the form available in October every year. However, with this big of a change, they needed additional time to get the federal systems in order so that they can be processed. So that delayed the opening of the FAFSA until January. And now they're delayed a little bit further because they did have to make a last-minute change to some of the tables in the formula for calculation of eligibility. So with all of the changes in effect, then it did delay it until January. And now, you know, once they have all of the data, they still have to go through the formulas and all the database matches and all of that. So yes, it's making us all a little nervous because it's kind of eating away at the students' time frame they have in order to make a decision on where they want to go, what's going to be most affordable for them.
Well, that's what I was wondering. What kind of effect is this having on the colleges and the students?
Right. For the students, it's mainly affecting the new students because they don't know what kind of financial aid package they're going to be awarded until the schools can get the data from the FAFSA and actually create a package for them. Let them know what kind of grant assistance they're looking at, what kind of loan assistance, things like that. For the schools, our hands are tied a little bit because we can't do our systems testing and things like that until after we actually start receiving data, or at least some test data,
Right.
So that we know that our systems are in place and ready to go.
Well, because of this, have they then maybe pushed back the deadline for people to apply for FAFSA?
The state of Indiana has not. Right now, they're sticking with the priority deadline of April 15th. A lot of schools and institutions will go ahead and have, publicized that they are pushing their application deadlines back, or acceptance deadlines back, scholarship deadlines. Other institutions are looking at it on a case-by-case basis, being extremely flexible with those deadlines.
But you're saying that this is probably the only year they're going to have to do that? That once they get caught up, that next, or in the fall, it should go back to the way it was?
Yes.
So is there anything that students can do in the meantime while they're, just wait?
Essentially, it's kind of a waiting game right now, unfortunately. If they have not already applied for their FSA ID to fill out the FAFSA, they need to go ahead and do that, and then wait 3 days and fill out the FAFSA, get that done now, because once the Department of Education does start processing, it's going to take a while to get the backlog of FAFSAs. There's been about a little over 4 million FAFSAs already submitted.
Wow.
So in order for them to get all of those processed, it's going to take a little bit.
A little bit of time for 4 million, I would say. And then
Exactly.
there's still more coming in.
Exactly.
So this is also the first time Indiana has required most high school seniors to fill out FAFSA. Now, why did they pass a law requiring that?
They don't want students to leave money on the table, essentially. The goal is to ensure the students understand what their funding options are. There's students and parents that don't believe that they're going to be eligible for anything, so they just don't apply. And this is the Indiana Commission's way of kind of pushing them a little bit to say, go ahead and file and see see where you land, because you might be surprised. You might be eligible for more than what you think, making it affordable for you to go to college.
So was the idea there to maybe two things, maybe one, try to help people from having so much debt, but also to encourage more people to seek higher education?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So a lot of the people, though, think that applying for FAFSA is just for four-year colleges, but what other things could they use it for?
Mostly it's four-year colleges, two-year colleges, some career schools also will use the FAFSA information.
What do you mean by career schools?
Cosmetology, beauty
okay.
schools,
Right.
Technical institutions, things like that.
Okay, so it's just a good idea. I mean,
Definitely.
so there is a reason why they made it a law, I guess. Is there anything else that students and parents should know about FAFSA?
It's just be aware that you might file the FAFSA and it hasn't been processed yet. So even if you filed back in January when it first opened, then you'll log back in and it says in review or still processing or something like that. The Department of Education will send you an email letting you know when it has been processed. And then also keep in mind that all of us schools need some time to process that as well and be able to come up with a financial aid package, including grants, loans, scholarships, before we can notify you what you're eligible for. So patience.
So they don't need to start calling and harassing you until what? Maybe a few months down the road, or
Well,
after they've applied, I mean.
right. Well, we've been told that the Department of Education will start sending FAFSA information to the schools about mid-March. So if we can't get it till mid-March, then it takes
Right.
a little time for us to get all of that processed ourselves. So we're looking probably mid-April, maybe some schools late April, early May, before they can actually get financial aid offer letters out to students.
And then just to go back quickly, that you said most of the schools will offer assistance in filling it out if you need it.
Correct.
And then also, I think tax preparers can do that as well. Isn't that correct?
We can limit, really tax preparers and colleges are limited this year as to how much we can help. Only because of the direct data exchange with the IRS. So, as long as students and parents provide their consent and permission, essentially, for the IRS to pull that data in, then they should be pretty good. But if they do need help, colleges, maybe a tax preparer can help them, but we can't do it for you because of that consent piece.
Really? Okay.
There is a College Goal Sunday, which is a session that is available to help students and parents if they're having trouble with the FAFSA. Some of it we might be able to kind of help you work through. If you're having an issue with your FSA ID, however, unfortunately, you'll need to call the help desk and get in touch with the Department of Education, because we can't necessarily help with that part. But College Goals Sunday will be housed at Ivy Tech this coming up Sunday, February 25th, from 2 to 4 p.m. There'll be representatives there from all of the colleges here in town, Ivy Tech, as well as U of V and USI.
Okay.
So if you have questions or need help, come on out to Ivy Tech and we'll see what we can do to help you out.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So really, everybody who has a high school senior should have the FAFSA filled out.
Correct.
All right. Thank you so much for your information.
You're welcome.
Welcome to a special WNIN Newsmakers segment that highlights local businesses. Joining us today is Matt Smorch, President and CEO of Countrymark. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about what products and services your business provides.
Well, Countrymark is probably the smallest integrated oil company in the world, actually. So we're a production, refining, transportation, marketing company. So we make high quality diesel fuel and gasoline. So our proprietary products plus gasoline has extra detergency. So it's a top tier gasoline, so it helps keep not carburetors, but fuel injection systems clean. And then our flagship product is Premium Diesel X4, which is a high quality diesel fuel. It has extra detergency that'll keep injectors and diesel engines clean.
Where would you find this being distributed?
So we have a refinery that's over in Mount Vernon, which is west of Evansville here. But we have a pipeline, a proprietary products pipeline, and a terminal system that runs throughout the state of Indiana. So basically from the refinery up to north of Indianapolis is our first segment of pipeline. And then from Indianapolis area up to Peru kind of runs straight north. And so we sell products primarily in Indiana, and then it kind of bleed over into the surrounding states.
From the neighboring states.
Yep.
So how long have you been in business, and how did you get started?
Countrymark?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's actually a great story. Countrymark was basically our roots. We talked to about from 1919. So Indiana Farm Bureau, that also sells the advocacy group, but also do insurance. That's basically when Indiana Farm Bureau started, and Countrymark used to be Indiana Farm Bureau Cooperative. And so we're a farmer-owned. We were the brother of Indiana Farm Bureau, the for-profit part of the company. And so we started off and we used to have cooperatives in every county in the state, and it was for profit, and we were supplying things like twine and chickens. Okay, and then in 1939, a lot of people don't realize this, but oil was discovered in Griffin, Indiana.
No.
Out west. Yes, and so in 1939, so what does the farmer-owned cooperative do? Hey, they decide, hey, let's build a refinery over in Mount Vernon. And so it was basically to take local crude and process it into high quality products, because the cooperative system really started because they couldn't get quality products. And so farmers wanted to pool their resources and then have a bigger say with suppliers. And so lubricating oils and fuels and all of those things were always a problem to get to make sure they had high quality. So they basically said, hey, let's start a refinery. And so the refinery was built in 1940. And so we've been in operation since 1940 from a refining standpoint.
Wow. Now, how do you see the business growing and expanding in the future?
Well, the expansion, since I've been here, I've been at Countrymark for a little over 23 years. And since I've been here, we've expanded the plant, the processing capabilities, at least 50%. So we've increased the capacity. And we're looking at going and expanding that capacity again, because the way our system is, we supply the local cooperative with their high quality fuels. and their business continues to grow. So it's not just the agriculture business. We probably supply over 70% of the farms in Indiana. But we also do municipalities. We got about half the school systems in the state where we supply diesel fuel. And they're always continuing to grow their business into construction, home-based fleets, and things like that. So for us to keep up with them as they grow their business, we got to continue to go and be able to refine more crude oil into high-quality products so we can keep up with their demand, which is still growing.
Oh, that's a good problem.
That is a good problem,
So
for sure.
what kind of challenges have you faced? And then how do you overcome some of those obstacles?
Well, there's always challenges in our business, and you know, especially this day and age where we have a energy transition, so-called energy transition, where we want to go and electrify everything. We have to do one of the things that is our challenges is that we have a obligation to blend renewable fuel, ethanol, biodiesel. And we're big proponents of ethanol and biodiesel blending because those are made from farm products and they're our owners. The thing is that the way the math is, we have a hard time being able to blend enough renewable fuels to meet the obligation that we have. And so it costs us $40 to $50 million a year just for compliance costs. So one of the things that we're doing, we're making a fairly big investment at the refinery where we're going to be able to go and co-process soybean oil and have a renewable portion of our diesel fuel. So it'll go right into the refinery process and it'll be commingled with our diesel fuel. So that's one thing that we're doing to kind of overcome that. But the big thing today, and it's not so much in Indiana, it's not so much here, but I talked about the electrification of everything.
Right.
I mean, policy and even the federal government is putting rules in place that are basically going to go and get rid of the internal combustion engine. And California's already said they're going to ban it by 2035. People don't realize that there's 15 or so states that adopt California rules. So it's not just California, it'll be 40% of the country's going to ban the internal combustion engine. Where when you look at that, the infrastructure for electric vehicles and all that, it doesn't exist. And there's a lot of cost and money to be spent to go and build that infrastructure. So that's kind of a problem. But then the federal government's also writing rules today that are basically a mandate to go to an electric vehicle. And it's really just pushing the technology a lot faster than what society, can handle. So when I look at it, it's not necessarily about feasibility, but it's about policies that are getting put in place. I think we're going to be around for a long time. I think the internal combustion engine will be around for a long time.
Right.
It's just that I think there might be more pain involved with people before it actually changes. So.
Well, what would you say is the most gratifying aspect of your business?
Oh, the most gratifying is, you know what, I know this might sound cliche, but I tell you, the people that we have in our business are really great. I mean, we are owned by farmers. We serve rural communities. We have like 125 service stations, or gas stations, but they primarily are in rural Indiana, so they're not in the big cities and things like that. And when you go and you can serve the people in the rural communities, it just makes it so much more satisfying. The other thing too is being a cooperative. When we make money, we get to share that money with our members. And so if we make money, we can distribute returns to our members, and then that in turn gets distributed locally. So if we make money, that money stays local. So when I look at it, we have about 500 employees at Countrymark, but our membership have a few thousand employees. And then when you look at all the people that are part of that system, and also people that we purchase oil from in the Illinois basin, which is southern Indiana, western Kentucky, and southern Illinois. I mean, we have a big footprint, even though we're very small in our industry.
So it's a win-win for everyone.
It's a great win for everybody.
Well, thank
for
you so
sure.
much for coming in and sharing this information.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks to our guests for joining us today. I'm April Nading. Thanks for watching WNIN Newsmakers.